Hello, Grade 10 students. Our lesson today is grammar, and it is mainly about questions. Please prepare your student's book, page 14. Today's objectives. 1. Identify the uses of question words through filling up gaps. Form subject and object questions for given answers. Change questions from direct to indirect ones. Compose a direct question applying the learned rules. Look at the pictures, read the questions, and guess the hidden question words. Picture 1. The answer is who, since it is asking about a person. Who is calling? Who will reach the phone first? Picture 2. The dog is checking for directions or places to go. Where should I go? Picture 3. He is checking for time on the calendar. When can I go on vacation? Picture 4. He is checking for a specific thing. What is making that sound? Picture 5. He is checking choices on the menu. Which dish should I choose? Picture 6. The mom is checking for ways to stop her baby from crying. How do I stop the baby from crying? Picture 7. He wants to know the reason behind her anger. Why are you angry? Please open your student's book, page 78, Grammar Reference section. Read and highlight the question words and their uses. We are going to focus on some examples, who and whom. As you can see, both are used to ask about people. Who is used to ask about a subject or an object, whereas whom is used to ask about objects. And what's the difference between a subject and an object? Let's check this example together. I purchased a laptop. I is the subject since he is the person doing the activity, whereas laptop is the object since it is the thing on which the activity is done. It is worth mentioning that the subject usually comes before the verb and the object comes after the verb. Student's book, page 14, exercise A. Complete the questions below with question words. 1 is an example. A. To, are you going to give this gift? B. My cousin, which is a person referring to the object. That's why it's going to be whom. Solve the rest and come back for discussion. Two. A. Can arrange the doctor's appointment for Mr. Smith. B answers the secretary, which is a person referring to the subject. The answer is who. 3. A. Was it you wanted me to bring you? B. My keys, which is a thing. The answer is what. Test time. Fill in the blank with the correct question word. The answer is what? Excellent. What did you learn in this activity? I learned the question words. Student's book, page 14, exercise B. Read the following examples and come back for discussion. Please read and answer question 1. Which question asks about the subject of the verb? Definitely, it's question 1. A asks, Who lives on campus? B answers Leslie, which is the subject. Read questions 2 and 3, answer them, and come back for discussion. Which question asks about the object of the verb? Question 2. In which question is the verb in question form? The second one. Let's take a closer look. A. Who does Leslie live with? As you notice, this is my verb in question form. B answers Karen, which is the object. Grammar reference, Students Book, page 79, Subject-Object Questions. Read the following and highlight the important parts. Firstly, subject questions. Who saw the accident? Tom. What happened outside? An accident. Both Tom and an accident are subject. That's why we call the following questions subject questions. How do we form subject questions? By using one of the question words, who, which, or what, plus the verb in the affirmative form, which means no auxiliary or helping verb, such as saw, happened. In conclusion, in order to form subject questions, there should be no auxiliary verbs. Secondly, object questions. Who did you see at the restaurant? Tom and June. What are you eating? Chinese food. Tom and June, Chinese food, are objects. How do we form object questions? By using one of the question words who, which, or what, plus the verb in the question form, which means with an auxiliary verb. Let's check together. Did, see, are, eating. Did and are auxiliary or helping verbs. So, in order to form object questions, we need to have auxiliary or helping verbs. Students Book, page 14, exercise C. Write questions. The words in bold are the answers. One is an example. A asks, what? B answers, I ordered a milkshake and a donut at the cafe. A milkshake and a donut is the object, so we have an object question. What did you order? Did order is the verb in the question form where you have did as an auxiliary verb. Solve the rest and come back for discussion. 2. A. Which? B answers, Greg bought the red jacket. The red jacket is an object. So again, we have an object question. Which jacket did Greg buy? As you can see, the verb is again in the question form, where did is an auxiliary verb. 3. A asks, who? Peter is going bowling with Mark. Peter is the subject. So we have a subject question. Who is going bowling with Mark? Is going is my verb in the affirmative form. Test time. Write a question for the given answer. I learned the subject and object questions in this activity. The answer is, what did you learn in this activity? Students Book, page 14, exercise D. What is the difference between these questions? Question 1 and 2 begin with the question word what and who. We call them WH questions, whereas question 3 is a yes or no question. What do we call these questions? Well, we call these questions direct questions. Would you please tell me if these are formal or informal questions? Amazing! They are informal questions. And now, how do we make these direct questions more formal? Yes, of course, by changing them to indirect questions. These are our two types of questions. Let's take a closer look. What time does the train leave? This is our direct question. To change it to indirect, would you tell me what time the train leaves? How to change direct questions to indirect ones. Direct question, when do you study? It's indirect question. Would you tell me when you study? Try to guess the rule of changing direct questions to indirect ones. As you notice, when we change direct questions to indirect ones, we need to begin with an introductory phrase plus the question word if we have a WH question, if we have a yes or no question, followed by the subject, the verb, and the correct punctuation mark. Now, let's get introduced to the introductory phrases used for indirect questions found in your student's book, page 79. As you notice, we have two sets of introductory phrases. Will you please tell me what's the difference between these two sets? Perfect. The first set, as you notice, requires a question mark at the end. Example, can or could or would you tell me? With a question mark at the end. Whereas the second set does not require a question mark, such as I'd like to know, I was wondering. Grammar reference section, Student's Book, page 79. Read the following carefully, highlight the important parts. Amazing. These are the phrases needed to change direct to indirect questions. Remember, when you have a WH question, you need to use the same question word when you change it to indirect. And when you have a yes or no question, you have to use if or whether when changing to indirect. Student's Book, page 14, Exercise E. You are going to read the direct questions and form indirect ones. But first, I'm going to display the rule for you as a reference. Now, we will solve the first one together as an example. How long will the meeting last? Excuse me, do you know? As you can see, this is my introductory phrase, followed by the question word how long, and then the meeting, which is the subject of the question, and lastly, my verb. Please do not forget to add the suitable punctuation mark, which is a question mark. I would like you to pause the video, finish the exercise, and come back for discussion. Number 2, where does Miss Davis live? It is going to start with could you inform me, which is the introductory phrase, followed by the question word where, my subject Miss Dave, my verb lives, and the question mark. Number 3, is the flat furnished? I'd like to know. This is my introductory phrase. And then, since this is a yes or no question, I'm going to use if, followed by the subject, the flat. My verb is furnished. And this time, the suitable punctuation mark is a full stop. Test time. Form a direct question using the following words. Answer: what did you learn today? Change your direct question to an indirect one. Suggested answers: could you tell me what you learned today? Or I would like to know what you learned today. You can still use different introductory phrases. Today, I learned question words, subject-object questions, and indirect questions.